This is the video review of Tripitaka from the Westward by Joythink, which is a Chinese company. Here's how he scales. He's about Voyager size, 6 inches. He doesn't come with any accessories. His face sculpt is pretty interesting. It doesn't really match the robot aesthetic of the rest of his body. It's very human looking, and then his fingers and chest have like robot joints. So they definitely should have made his face more robotic looking and angular. And then he doesn't have any eyes. They're just gray. And his face is made of, or his head is made of like a rubbery material. And the rest of his body is all plastic. His hands are painted. And then he has some die cast in these hip sections. These hip skirts are die cast. The rest is plastic. So his articulation, he's got double jointed elbows. He's got full bicep swivel, outward on the shoulder, 360 on the shoulder, but these wheels get in the way. And then 360 on the head, ball joint. And then for the hips, he does have a full outward kick, full forward and backward, but all this kibble in the back is going to restrict his backward kick. And then for his knee, he's got about 90 degrees. And then ankle tilt and a pivot for transformation. And then he's also got finger articulation. So the robot mode is looking pretty good all around. I would say it's kind of a 7. It's a little basic looking. They definitely could have painted in the beads around his wrists. Maybe made him look a little bit more interesting. And then all this kibble on the back it's nice and flat, but there is a lot of it. Okay, to transform him, you're going to split open the forearms, and then the fist will fold into there. I haven't seen that in a transformer in a while. And then you can pull out these skirts, straighten them out, and those are going to peg onto the thighs right there. And then you can fold up the feet, and that's about all you can do on the legs for now. Okay, and then you're going to fold open the chest. And that's going to release the arms. And this is one of the issues I have with the transformation. So you fold these panels up and out of the way. And it's very confusing, but this is on a double hinge right here. So you have to pull that out, and that'll get this car section, arm section kind of out of the way. And then you do the same thing for the other side. And now you have this long piece of plastic which is holding the head and the front of the car section together. So that's the only thing that connects it to the body. So now you have to rotate the head around, and I can't figure out a way to do this without it kind of crashing into these arm sections that are in the way. You just can't really get them out of the way. You just have to flex them out of the way and cheat a little bit, but there's not quite clearance to do that. And then you finish folding the head around. So now it's in where the body would be. Okay, now you're going to pivot the shoulders into this section here, this car section. And then the back of the bicep has this slot which you want to end up here. So you want to have that folded out, so when you rotate this car section, it clips into this part next to the neck. Okay, and then you want to have the forearm compressed as much as possible, so this is all going to rotate there and clip into place like that. Okay, so you have both of those in place. You're just going to close up the chest section, and now you have a lot of what looks like a car back here. And you want to get these double hinges that have the whole arm assembly on them. You want to straighten those out a bit to make it nice and neat like that, and that will clean up the front of the car section and put it at a 90-degree angle. Then you're going to fold out the windows on the doors. You can fold these sections next to whatever this is, the front grille of the car. Okay, and the hood's obviously going to come down and peg into place here to clean up the front of the car. And now you have to rotate the waist section. I forgot to mention that piece of articulation. He does have a rotating waist, so that's going to rotate. But first you have to get all this kibble out of the way, and this makes the hood and the rear trunk of the car. And then these fold out. And then this back assembly, which kind of looks like a pouch, is going to be the rear of the car. And now you can rotate the whole waist around. And then the front of the thighs here will make the cars for the seats for the interior of the car. So it's pretty clear everything that's going to happen here. You just nicely peg everything into place. So the front of his skirt will just peg into his hips right there, the back of his hips. And then this whole assembly is just going to clip into place here. You have to move the die cast parts out of the way, clip everything into place, and then close the die cast parts onto these tabs. Okay, so that's the back all cleaned up. And then you have the interior of the car here with the seats, and you can almost fit a Titan's figure in there. You'd have to kind of lay him down and put him in there, but you could fit a Titan's figure in there into the seat, which is pretty cool. Then you just close that up. And then there's the vehicle mode. So some interesting choices. I think the amber colored windshield and the grille are a good choice. It really offsets all the white, which is just too plain looking. So there's good color contrast. And then here he is with a current deluxe figure. So he's bigger than a deluxe. They don't really scale, but you could, I guess if you use your imagination, you could say that they belong in the same scale. The vehicle mode for me, it's got a little bit too much going on. It's very busy looking, and the lack of paint in key areas makes it look overly plain at the same time. I don't know how something could be busy and very plain. So really this car is probably like a 6 for me, though I do appreciate the clear parts. Overall, Tripitaka is pretty great. He feels very solid. He doesn't have any of the QC issues of the other figures, I don't think. There's nothing I'm really worried about breaking on him. There are some clearance issues here and there, but overall I'd rate this like an 8, so a standard Studio Series kind of figure. Pretty good quality. It requires some plastic flexing to get pieces where they belong, but everything works out. The die cast doesn't get in the way at all, and it works out very nicely. The joints are pretty solid, and nothing is overly loose. I'll leave a link in the description to Sir Toys where you can buy the set of these figures. I highly recommend them, especially this figure. Because he feels just really good and he's worth the money. I just want to take a couple minutes and talk about the story of Journey to the West, which is an ancient Chinese myth. And it's about the Monkey King who basically goes to heaven and he steals a bunch of wine and peaches and tries to gain immortality, basically. And while adding thousands of years to his life, he gets into fights with all the gods in heaven, and he beats them until finally Buddha shows up and basically smacks him and sends him back to Earth and imprisons him under a mountain for hundreds of years. So then hundreds of years later, Tripitaka comes into the story, and he's on a task to gather the Buddha scrolls from India. And it was a really dangerous mission because if you're a monster or a demon and you eat a Buddhist monk, that would give you immortality, so lots of demons wanted to eat him. But he comes across Sun Wukong sealed in stone and releases Sun Wukong, but enslaves him with this headband so that Sun Wukong has to do everything that Tripitaka commands him to, otherwise he'll experience immense pain. So against his will, Sun Wukong helps Tripitaka on his journey. And then later on in the adventure, they meet Zhu Bajie, Pigsy, and Zhu Bajie also joins their party. And Pigsy's also an anti-hero who likes to chase women and eat a lot and drink a lot of alcohol. But he joins them because at the end of the quest, he might find redemption and forgiveness for all his sins, just like Sun Wukong is hoping to get redemption at the end, by the end too. And then finally they meet the fourth member of their party, who is Monk Sha, or Sandy, and he's basically just an evil monk who has attacked other monks, and he wears a necklace made of their skulls. And same deal with him. He comes late in the journey, so he doesn't really add very much. He can transform into other forms, and he's very strong, but we already have two other characters that can do that same thing. So he's a little bit pointless, and definitely the least favorite of these four for me. And then basically by the end of the journey, Sun Wukong and Sandy basically do get some redemption and ascend to holy figures, whereas Pigsy still has too many sins to really be forgiven, so he doesn't really redeem himself at the end all the way, just a little bit. So that's that story. And you see this story in a lot of different movies and TV shows and video games. It's one of China's most famous myths, and it's really interesting to me. So at some point I plan on reading that book. And then, of course, this is the figure that Goku from Dragon Ball is based off of, because he has his cloud, his staff, which can extend to any length, and then his monkey tail.